Hey guys, welcome to today's YouTube interview. I'm so excited. We have a special guest with us today, a very good friend of mine, Jeff Caliguire. Jeff is the founder and CEO of We Train Coaches. I love the name of that organization. It just says what it is. I love that, Jeff. Jeff obviously trains coaches, leaders, coaches entrepreneurs, business leaders. Jeff has been a church planter, planted a church and pastored that church in Boston for years. And so a lot of ministry experience. He's an author. Check out his books on Amazon. He's got a author page on Amazon you can check out. He's got 4 or 5 books there that you can check out as well. And he lives with his wife, Mindy Caliguire, in Boulder, Colorado. So Jeff, in honor of that, I wore my Colorado Rockies hat and my Pinewood Boulder t-shirt today. So
love it.
Shout out to Boulder, Colorado today. So Jeff, thanks for joining us. Jeff, I remember the first time I met you. I was in Chicago, came over to your house, and we sat and we talked. And I remember going home and telling my wife, Cindy, I feel like I just met my long lost brother. And then you and I were together just a few weeks ago, and Cindy met you. You don't know this. When we got in the car, she said, oh my gosh, now I see why you call him your long lost brother. She said, you two are just so, I see how y'all just get along. But Jeff, here's the thing I love when I'm with you. Every single time we're together, we end up dreaming. And
yes, we do.
I just thought that's what a great coach does. One of the things a great coach does, it draws dreams out of people. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with you today about coaching. I just want to talk to you about the importance of coaching and why you should have a coach and those sort of things. But Jeff, let's just start it off. Let me ask you, how has coaching impacted you personally?
Yeah. And so like you said, I was a church planter, planted a church right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And one of the things that happens, Mac, I was in my 20s, a church planter, and I started to realize I had been so prepared. I went to an Ivy League school. I went to one of the best seminaries in the country. I was on staff at this mega church, and nothing had prepared me for some of the issues of leadership, including me, that I experienced in leadership. And so the question I had at that point was, who do I talk to? I mean, like, there's an element of being surprised by 2 things. One, like how lonely I was, but also like, how do I become more effective? How do I actually lead in such a way that is flowing out of me and I'm not being somebody else? And is that a professional? Is that a friend? Who is that? And that's where God brought a person named Bob Beal into my life. And he's literally still my coach. I can't even tell you how many years later I've re-engaged him as my coach.
So, man, I'm so jealous that you had Bob Beal as your coach. Now, what did Bob bring as a coach? What did he bring to you that you didn't have?
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of us have people, friends or our spouse. I mean, and I can say that I would dump things onto my wife, Mac, that I shouldn't have dumped. And she's amazing, but, we can't have our spouses be the people sometimes we process with. And so I now tell people that a coach brings 3 things that you usually don't get. Number 1 is a mirror. Is someone outside of you who can help you see yourself from a different vantage point. And we get in our own heads. So a coach can help just reflect back what you're saying, how you're coming across. The second thing is a sounding board, where we can process things that we really shouldn't process with other people. And then the next thing I would say is an accountability. Someone, when we say, hey, this is what I want to do, they say the next week, how'd that go? And it's amazing how that accountability gets things done. So Bob has brought that. And now as I've trained other coaches, it's simple. It's not rocket science, but it's being that kind of a person in a leader's life.
Yeah. Jeff, you and I've talked about this before, and the impact of coaching on your life has been transformational, but not every coach is transformational. So what is it that makes coaching transformational?
Yeah. Now, my wife, Mindy, who speaks, great communicator, she once said, there's a difference between the transfer of information and transformation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we expect information is going to be transformational. Clearly, Jesus, didn't just give information. He did things that brought transformation. And so, like, even coaching can go to a new level when you get from, like, we all want results. The next level is, we realize actions lead to results. Below results is emotion. Below emotion is belief. And below belief is identity. And so when a coach knows how and is equipped to not just help somebody on the level of actions and results, but can actually get to the level of emotion, and they can draw that out, when they can help you understand your emotion, that's the mirror part of it. But I would say, a great coach is able to let you become the person, not just give advice. One of the things I teach coaches now is don't be the advice factory. Yeah. Tame the advice monster. And so a belief that we have as coaches is there's an expert in the room, and the expert is you. The expert is the person you're coaching, not you as the coach. So you need to extract, not educate. And that's your job as a coach, to extract and get to the level of your identity, get to the level of your why. And so the transformation becomes, really significant. Mac, are you familiar with the derivation of the word coach? And maybe I even shared this with you. No? Wow. I'd been coaching for 15 years, 16 years before I ever looked this up. Okay, we think of coaches, we tend to think, like a coach on a football field or football team. It's actually from a little village in Hungary by the name of Coach. And guess what they made in Coach? They made coaches. They made stage coaches and buggies. So really, a coach is a transportation vehicle that helps you go from where you are to where you need to go. So when you coach someone, you help them identify, where do you need to go? Where are you now? And how do I journey with you and help you smooth out the bumps and the obstacles to get to where you need to go?
Oh man, that is gold. No, I've not heard that. That is so good.
I had been coaching for 16 years. No one ever told me. So, you now know something that took me a long time to ever look up,
That's great. But this is so good because here's what I see a lot of senior pastors do. They might have some younger leaders under them, and they go, I've told him and I've told him and I've told him, and he still doesn't do it. I've tried to teach him how. And instead of really understanding what's underneath I always say you can't change someone's behaviors if you don't change their beliefs, and you're taking that to even another level, to the identity level. You can't change behaviors until you understand the identity aspect that's causing the belief, which causes the behavior. Right. And pastors go, I don't want to dig that deep. I just want them to do the work, and coaches can do that type of work to bring about that true level of transformation.
I had the opportunity to sit down with an Air Force general, and he said, we even in the military realize that command and control, in a lot of ways doesn't produce new leaders. We need a new way of developing leaders, and coaching, has a mentality that says, hey, we're going to extract what's inside of you. We're going to extract the gold. We're going to help find the motivation, find the passion, and believe that you have gifts that we don't. And so I think a lot of leaders would do well to study coaching, because coaching is about drawing out the motivation, the leadership, and the abilities of those we're leading.
Yeah. Talk to me for a minute about leadership development. How do you see coaching being an effective part of leadership development? Because
Yeah.
that's important to pastors. They want to see their staff and key leaders grow. So talk to me about that for a minute.
So I was at a talk a number of years ago in north of Chicago. A guy named Matthew Kelly, who's a leader developer, was speaking, and he said, the word change. How many people here like change? He said, raise your hand if you think people like change. How many people do you think raised their hand?
Zero. One. No,
One.
Every senior leader.
Oh, no, it was one. It was the person talking. It was Matthew Kelly. He goes, I believe people like change. He goes, people would love to be more effective. They would love to be, have more money. They would love to be in a better relationship. They'd love to lose weight. He goes, the issue tends to be transition. How do I move from here to there? And what coaching does is coaching helps someone navigate the transition and overcome the things that we're avoiding, overcome the issues that are mindset issues, soul issues. And so a transformational coach is going to help a leader become the person they're meant to be by making the transition and becoming effective as themselves. Because we know as leaders, they know more about what they're doing than we do in many ways. We can't know everything they know, but our job is to coach them, to draw it out of them. And that's why I've started developing coaches, because a lot of times managers and leaders, they've been taught knowledge and information, but they haven't been taught, like you do, how to develop new leaders. And coaches are learning those kind of tools that can help develop leaders.
Jeff, if a pastor said, okay, I'm buying into this coaching thing. All right, I see that it's important. I see that I need it. I see that my staff needs it. I may not be able to provide it, but I see that they need it. If they got serious and really provided coaching for, got coaching for himself and the team, how would that impact the culture?
Yeah. I think, many of the number one reason that most people leave a team or leave a company, you know what that number one reason is, right? It tends to be the leader or manager they work for. And there's a huge amount of burnout going on in people. There's a thing that's called the Great Resignation, with a huge amount of turnover, because they're leaving managers who are not, number one, they're not seeing the real potential inside of the people they're working with, and they're not developing them. So I would say, one of the reasons that, our company is We Train Coaches, we want to train those leaders. Number one is you can't take someone in a place you haven't experienced. And when it comes to coaching, more is caught than taught. And so the way we develop coaches is we coach them and help them know how to coach other people. And so I would say the first thing is, as a leader, experience coaching yourself. Work with a coach and then start to go, all right, how do these concepts apply to how I now coach people? And that's what happened as I worked with Bob Beal back in the 90s. I started to go, wow, I need to take what he's doing with me and do it for my team. Yeah. And so that, I think, coaching as a leader, I work with a counselor, I work with a spiritual director, I work with a coach. Sometimes we have to ask ourselves not how, but who. Not how do I coach, but who can I work with, or who can help equip me in how to do this? And that's not a weakness, it's really a strength.
Yeah. Jeff, for somebody that says, okay, I love what you're saying, I see the importance of it, but I don't know if I can learn to be a coach. Is it difficult to learn to be a coach?
Well, again, the reason we started We Train Coaches 5 years ago is we want to raise up spiritually mature coaches, because ultimately the soul of the coach influences how they coach. So not all coaching is the same. And like transformation, I mean, we use the word transformation, is like, you're not just staying as a caterpillar, you're actually becoming mush and dying inside of a cocoon and becoming a butterfly. Like what the coach provides is that safe place for that. And so I'd say to the leader, just spend a few months working with a coach, experience it, and maybe you'll start to see the transferable principles that can work, or bring in somebody else who can train your leaders in coaching and how to coach and build leaders through a coaching approach.
Yeah. You say that coaches are today's new spiritual leaders. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. And so certainly not the only spiritual leaders. I'll make sure that's heard, because pastors and ministry leaders, but coaches can bring a level of intimacy and relationship into the boardroom. I mean, I work with, political leader, I work with financial advisors, I work with coaches. A lot of times in career transition, someone needs a spiritual person and a spiritual guide. Coaches can bring that attention that a pastor can't bring, or that a leader of an organization can't bring. And so my vision of raising up spiritual leader coaches, I feel like, is significant, because we can bring that presence to people where they are. And presence may be the key word there. It's you show up in very intimate ways.
Yeah. I love that, because when I'm talking to the churches I work with about leadership development and building out the leadership pipeline, I advocate for a mentoring approach to training new leaders. And I think of I think it's 1st or 2nd Timothy, where Paul says something to the effect of, Timothy, I consistently pray for you. And my paraphrase is, Timothy, I talk to God about you all the time. And so I use that to say that mentoring is not a 2-way relationship. It's a 3-way relationship. It's me talking to God about you. And as I talk to God about you, he tells me and can direct me how I can encourage, challenge, coach you in the process, instead of me just using my coaching skills on an individual. It's like you're saying, it's that spiritual leadership. God, how can I help them? And it's amazing when you do that, when you really begin to pray, that how the Holy Spirit can speak to you in a moment and give you a word picture, or give you just the right question, or the ability to lean in and challenge that individual in a way that, boom, produces like almost an instant transformation, because it was a defining moment in their life, because it was the right question or the right challenge. And that's spiritual.
Yeah. And I mean, and Jesus obviously modeled that he would bring a question to somebody. Jonas Salk, the guy who invented the polio vaccine, had said, he said, what most people think of as the moment of discovery is really the discovery of the question. And so, like, as leaders, part of our job is not just to know stuff, it's actually to have a question and be curious. I literally was sitting with a billionaire this summer, having dinner, got to spend 45 minutes talking, and he peppered me with questions the whole time. And I said to him, do you always ask people these kind of questions? He goes, how do you think I became a billionaire? Oh. I'm incredibly curious. I'm always trying to figure out what makes that person tick. And he goes, that's how, I opened up all these new ways of doing things and opportunities. And I think there's leaders being curious is important. And so, like, learning from a coaching approach is, how do we ask the right question, not have the right answer?
Woo! So good. Leading with curiosity rather than leading with your content and concept.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and we need to know stuff. Knowing stuff is awesome, but we also need to be about unlocking them. Like the people on your team, know who unlocks them, who sees them. I mean, that's the number one thing that leads to the burnout and people leaving the companies, is they don't feel like their leader sees them. But if you can ask questions that nobody else is asking them, you're able to experience and see them on a whole new level.
Yeah, so good. Jeff, how have the breakthroughs in neuroscience affected the value of having a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think neuroscience is amazing. I mean, Romans 12:2 talks about that we're to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And really in the last few years, what neuroscience has discovered is brains can change. I mean, the whole concept of neuroplasticity means that your brain can change itself by the way you think. And so, like, if you can learn how to think, you are actually creating new real estate inside of your brain, new neurons, new dendrites. And so neuroscience basically says your brain can change, like the Bible says. And so what a coach does is they work with you to help create those new neural pathways and see that change happen. So I think, I think leaders need to be experts in neuroscience. We need to be following Dr. Daniel Amen or Dr. Caroline Leaf and looking at what they're learning about the brain, because that's leadership is developed like one neuron at a time. It's not like, you just change the brain instantly, but you have a way that you can bring about that change.
Yeah. God created that organ. And if we understand, that's why I used to tell our trainers, if you understand how God created the brain, you will begin to understand how people learn and change. I think there should be seminary classes on neuroscience.
Amen. Amen.
That's
totally, I totally agree. Yeah.
There's a pastor friend of mine, Charles Stone, lives in Canada, and he wrote a book called The Brain Savvy Leader. And his daughter had neurological issues as a child. So he just dove deep into studying neuroscience and just got a degree in neurological leadership, something like that.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And
I agree. I think leaders, we can learn how to change brains, and that is the transformation of the mind. Yeah. And like I think of Martin Luther King, who said, "I may not be the man I could be, may not be the man I would be, may not be the man I should be, but thank God I'm not the man I once was." And that's in the brain, that's in the mindset. Yeah.
And I think as pastors, we need to hear that hey, my team can change. Those patterns might be deeply ingrained, but they can change. There is hope. So
yes, and that's where raising up a new generation of spiritually minded coaches, who are both coaches in organizations as well as professionals. To me, is an opportunity that we have now, and something that I feel a lot of hope in.
Yeah, well, Jeff, thanks for joining us today. I'm working with a church right now, and it's fascinating. His staff are so sharp. I mean, one of the sharpest staff I've come across. And probably after my second or third on-site visit with them, he just casually mentioned to me, he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "every year I budget for each of my directors to be coached. And so they get X amount of dollars and they can go out and get a coach." That's much better money spent on that than going to a conference. And it is showing up in his staff because they're phenomenal, sharp young leaders, because they all have a coach. And so I appreciate what you shared with us today. And Jeff, if somebody wants to be coached by you or wants to learn how to be a coach through We Train Coaches, how can they contact you? Give us a little bit of your contact info.
Yeah, some easy contact info is wetraincoaches.com. Just like it spells. Someone once said it was Wet Rain Coaches, but it's actually We Train Coaches. And you go there, and there's a place that says, "Hey, are you interested in becoming a coach? Is coaching for me?" You can take an assessment just to even see, is coaching something that you have a competency for or could see yourself doing. So take that assessment. It's free. And then if you're interested in being coached by me or one of my team, there's a thing there that's called, I'm interested in being coached. You just fill that out, and totally no obligation. We can have a conversation, or one of the coaches connected to me can talk to you. And but I do say, no matter what, experience coaching to get a taste of it and see what it does for you.
Fantastic. Hey, thanks, man. I got a full page of notes here. You dropped some gold on us today. Thank you for that. And Man, tell Mindy I said hey, and the kids I said hey, and hopefully I'll be out to visit with you again soon.
Come on, man. Love what you're doing, Mac. May the leadership pipeline grow.
Thanks, man. Have a great one.
Thanks, Mac.